Right then folks, welcome to the beautiful Cudmore Fisheries on one of my favourite lakes in the whole wide world, the Arena Lake, for another of Andy May's crash courses. This time it's all things method feedery, so pretty much from all the baits that I'm going to use, where obviously my setup, where I start off fishing and where I end up fishing. So it's all going to get done in one. I'm going to catch some great big wobbly carp. So first things first, what do I do when I get here? The first thing I do when I get here is make sure your bait's done. So pretty much I'm going to say not all of my baits this time of year, in fact all times of year, it's going to be a combination of ground bait and micros. For me, micros, 1mm and 2mm. They're my go-to at the minute, but I'll always have a little bit of ground bait mixed up just in case. It just gives you that little bit of an extra, you know, something to go through. If they're not quite coming to the micros as quick, you can put a little bit of ground bait in and it definitely mixes things up. It puts a little bit of cloud into the water. So as soon as I got here, I mixed them up because it will take a good, I want to say like half an hour to get right. So in there we've got a mixture of 2mm and 1mm, put them both in the tub at the same time, completely soaking the water and just drain the water off until they're sort of peeking through, and then just leave them, folks. We get questions all the time, you know, how long should I leave them in the summer or compared to the winter? To be fair, with the Sonubaits pellets, they're awesome. So the Fin Perfect range, they're absolutely awesome. They'll take on the water and they'll be absolutely good to go. So half an hour, 40 minutes these have been left for, you know, give them one little squeeze, and obviously imagine them getting moulded round your method. This is why I put the 1mm in, simply because it's filling all them gaps. You know, since I've first been on these, I can't stop using them. I think they're absolutely amazing. You know, there's no little gaps anywhere, and they're a proper binder, to be fair. So that's my go-to one. That's what I'll be starting off on the method. Obviously, we'll go through how we load the method and that later on. But what I have got as well is some Super Crush Expander mixed up. Now, bearing in mind the lake that runs today, it's only a shallow lake. Anything up to sort of 3 foot Super Crush Expander. Anything a little bit deeper, then you just want something a little bit stickier, maybe like a method mixed ground bait or something like that. Just go with a slightly heavier ground bait. But the Super Crush Expander for me on these kind of venues at this time of year is my #1 go-to. That's what we're going to go for. The most important thing now, what you got to bear in mind, folks, it's probably been the hottest few days we've had in the whole wide world, and it's gone cloudy. Like fishing days, you couldn't get much better than this. But make sure you're covering it with a towel. All too often I see, you know, baits just left out to dry in the sun. Make sure it's covered with a towel, and then your bait stays bang on all day. So that's what we're going to be fishing around the method. Hook baits themselves. Now, there's loads of different hook baits. Everyone's got their own personal choice, whether it's, you know, pellets, obviously the Bandem, wafter or sinkers, maggots, corn meat. You know, it's one of them, it's endless. But for me personally, I love to use either a Bandem wafter or a Bandem sinker. This time of year, I'm erring more towards a sinker, simply because, certainly with a spiker in it as well, when you're spiking the actual bait, it's just that little bit heavier and it's staying in your pile a little bit longer. Obviously wafter for those like trickier days, you know, when the fish are like really cute. On here, it's pretty much carnage all the time on here. So I want to make sure that once I've loaded my method, I've got that bait and it's in that little trap all the time. So it's not getting dislodged, or it's only moving very, very, you know, marginally, if you like, out of the method. Casting wise, depends what's happening really. Obviously we can go through that when we start fishing, but usually 3 to 5 minutes. I'll always fish with a watch, so when I chuck it in, it's either getting 3 or 5 minutes depending on liners and what's happening out there, but I can talk to you about that later on. Colours wise, again, it's personal preference. Personally, I love to use either a yellow or an orange bait. It's one of them, whenever I ask carpers, they're like, no, pink's best, or black and this, that and the other, but I'm like, I can't not put a yellow or an orange one on. So that's that setup. Obviously, the other thing that I'll do as well, I know it's been in my bag a long time this, but krill and squid on one of the sinkers, it just helps you put the spiker in. In fact, let me do it. Literally all you need is a little tiny bit. I'm going to do this now. Obviously over the course of, you know, weeks, months or whatever, yeah, literally all you need is a little bit of a sprinkle on like that. And over the course of weeks and months, that'll gradually sink into or soak into them Bandems, and it'll make them easy to spike. Obviously just completely different presentation then. Obviously the spike being obviously metal, it's a little bit heavier. It just gives a little bit of a different presentation, so I'll show you that later on. We'll probably do like a little bit of a demo in water, you know what I mean? I'm all about demoing, aren't we? So that's like the bait side covered. The next thing I want to go through is the setup, and then obviously from the setup we're going to go through the casting. So first things first, what we've got now, obviously what you've got to consider if you're coming for a quick pleasure fish, just chuck in with a method. You know, obviously this is an ICS system, inline system. You can use fixed feeders on here, you can use elasticated feeders, but to be fair, obviously I'm only really fishing in matches, and in most of our matches you've got to use an inline system. So obviously if something gets tethered or you snap off or anything, the fish isn't towing your method around with you. So as I say, ICS system, we've just got the line running through this system here. Let me show you. Oh, my ledger bomb's gone fly away. We'll have him there. And then all it is, we've just got a little hook retainer there that's got a little tiny loop in it, and I've done my knot on that. That sits over there, obviously with your hook length in, that'll put on in a bit. That sits over there nice and comfy. And then to start it off with, obviously match conditions, you must chuck in with a lead under, you know, sort of angling truss reel. I was going to say NFA, but that's well by. I was going to go back in days then. Angling truss reels, you've got to cast in with a ledger bomb. You can't cast in with a method. But as I say, if you're just coming for a pleasure session, it doesn't matter. And that's the beauty of this system. You know, we can interchange between method feeders, you know, banjo feeders if you like, pellet, whatever you want to do. But for me personally, I just love a method feeder. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to cast in with that. Now, when I'm casting, I'm not going to go too tight to start with. Obviously, I've got a tiny little gap, probably getting on for 2 foot wide, right opposite me, which looks absolutely perfect to cast into. But I'm not going to go there to start with. I'm going to cast sort of like a metre off and see what's what. If it was bright, I'd probably get right under the cover. But to start with, because if you're chucking tight, you ain't get anywhere else to chase them to. So I'd sooner start off short, work my way up. Probably almost similar to sort of like mudline fishing, you know what I mean, on the snake leg or something. Waffling, aren't I? But anyway, rod choice. So we've got a chuck of probably 30 yards. You don't need to overgun it. Again, this is an instance I see all the time, anglers just using too heavy a gear for the job in hand. You know, obviously 11, 12 foot rods, they'd easily get to you that distance, but the trouble comes when sometimes when you're going to cast, you're overgunning it and you're hitting your clip too savage. But mainly it's when you're coming to net the fish. Obviously with the 10 foot rod that we've got here, the fish is coming up right under your feet, so it's dead easy to net them. Whereas obviously a longer rod, the fish is coming up that little bit too far out and it's just a little bit too much power in them. You don't need them for, I'm going to say chucks up to sort of 40 yards, just 10 foot rods. We've got a superior rod here. It's loaded with 0.20 feeder line and it's a 4,000 size reel. I wouldn't go anything less than a 4,000 size. Well, yeah, 3 to 4,000 I'd say. When you go in sort of like 5,000, 6,000, that's for like your bigger chucks, but anything up to 40 yards, I say 4,000, absolutely perfect. Make sure though that you can see on here that your line's loaded right to the lip of the spool. Again, when you're chucking sort of heavier objects, we're going to be casting a 30 gram method in a bit, which I'll talk you through shortly. You don't want your line like, you know, too far back on your spool, because it's the friction for your rod rings. You're not going to achieve the distance comfortably every time, so make sure that's loaded nice. Tip wise, I pretty much exclusively always go for an ounce tip. If we had a really bad sort of like wind, bad skim on it, bad undertow, that's when I go, you know, sort of ounce and a half, 2 ounce, just so I can, you know, really punch that feeder through the wind, so it's not like veering off target. But also, I'd probably join that up with using a heavier feeder, so it's not getting dragged along by the undertow and that. But on venues like this, especially today, no problem at all. So I think first things first, we'll go through casting to a clip and what we're looking for, because it's an area, just let me swivel round on my box, it's an area where a lot of anglers do get it wrong. Not clipped up at the minute, but basically what I'm looking to do is to cast at that gap that I've got. It's a little tiny babby gap in the reeds, but as I say, I don't want to go too tight. I want to go sort of, I'm going to say like a metre off, something like that. Main thing to bear in mind rather, is to have a nice long drop from your rod tip to your ledger bum. You know, we've done loads of videos on this, but I still see people, you know, winding that right to the tip there. For me, if you're winding right up high like that, that's when you're casting, you know, big distances, you know, sort of 50, 60 yards or something with longer rods. For these kind of chucks, you know, a good sort of 4 to 5 foot drop. The next thing you'll see us do, maybe not so much now, but when we've got the method in place, I'll sort of like slightly sling that, sorry, not sling it out, we don't just want to sling it out, do we? We want to swing it out gently so we can get a nice angle, make sure it's nice and tight as we're coming back over our shoulder to cast straight away. We don't want to be mending back over our right shoulder. I'm right-handed, but I'm coming back over my left shoulder. What I've got is a slight angle in my rod. I'm pointing the object, in this case obviously a bomb at the minute, but when we get a method on, pointing that to where you want to cast it, and then you're just coming back nice and slow behind you, making sure you can feel the weight all the time in the rod, and then you're just going to cast it. The other thing you'll see me do is come back with my rod, and then we'll do what's called feathering it. Obviously I've got to stop it with my fingers this time because I've not got it clipped up, so let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to lightly swing it out, come back, I'm just going to lightly push it out and stop it there. So we're probably a good couple of meters off there. Now I could clip it up there and go back to that same spot every time, but I want to get a little bit closer. So what I'm going to do, I've stopped the line on my finger from where I've cast it in. You on that, Jakey? I had a liner then. So what I'm going to do is just pay out a little bit more line so I can get closer to that island. As I say, I don't want to go right tight yet. And what I've done, get on that, Jakey, I've put it under the line clip there. Just literally just lifted the line off, put it under once, and that's it. Nice and easy. So do it a little bit faster this time. Now bearing in mind, obviously, if you had a bit of a nasty crosswind, you'd have to punch it a little bit harder and make sure your trajectory is a little bit lower. But to start with, if you sort of like aim for 45 degrees, that's what you want to be looking at. Imagine that clock, obviously 12 o'clock straight in front of you, and then coming down, you've got sort of 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I want to be letting go between, I'm going to say 12 and 11 as I'm coming down. But if we had a wind on, I might be letting go between, you know, 11 and 10 or even 10 o'clock, something like that. So again, nice drop from my rod tip to my ledger bomb, swing it out slightly, come back and just go for it straight away. Hit the clip, there, that's perfect. Or should we go a little bit closer? Yeah, let's go, I'm going to go one revolution on the spool closer, and then for me that's perfect. Now, the next thing you'll see me do, so let me bring that back a bit. Once I've hit the clip there, the worst thing in the world that you can do, I get a lot of anglers go wrong, is leave the rod there. What happens at that end, it sort of acts like a spring, so it's springing back from your clip and comes back towards you. What you'll see me do is, as I hit the clip, so the feeder hits the clip, I'm lowering the rod down, so you're getting that nice plop. Obviously the bomb at the minute, but when we put the method on, you're getting that nice plop. And you see where my rod rest is. Gone are the days, folks. You know, it's like old school fishing for like bream, where you have sort of like that really harsh angle in your rod. Literally, I'm almost pointing the rod at it, because trust me, when you get a bite, it's on. You know what I mean? There's no mistaking a bite, it is just on. So I've got my rod rests set, perfect for me. So this one's pretty much straight in front of where I'm casting, and I've got a little holder here just to stop my rod getting towed in, basically. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with where we're casting. So next thing we need to do, and that's the beauty of this ICS system, is just change that over to a method. So all we've got to do, take that rubber sleeve off, get that ledger bomb over there, and then, so my personal preference is to use the 30 grammers. Now 30 grammers for me, they pretty much do everything. Obviously they come in a range of different sizes, these, but a 30 grammer for me is perfect. It's just, well, it's more than heavy enough that the fish are going to hook themselves on it. If I wasn't casting this far, you know, sometimes this can work on like snake lakes, or if you just sort of like underarming it close in, that's when potentially like a 15 or even a 20 gram would come into place. But I still err towards using a 30 grammer just because you get the hooking properties. If it was really windy and maybe I'm casting a little bit further, just go heavier, simple as that. But the beauty of this system is that it's got a slightly wider, you know, hole at the bottom than the top. That sounds a bit wrong, but you know what I mean, we're getting there, aren't we? So that just goes on the line, and then we're just sliding that down and sliding that over the top. So that's fixed on there. So obviously the next thing we need to do, fast forwarding it, aren't we, is get a hook out. Now, right, so here's the thing, hook-wise. I'm a massive fan of using great big hooks. I love using sort of like 12s hooks minimum, sometimes 10s, but more often than not 12s. But the beauty of using a sinker is that you can get away with slightly smaller hooks. So I've got some 14s. We're going to start off on a 14s with the sinkers, but I've got some 12s as well. Now, this is the beauty of these, you know, straight out of the packet, the MCM. So we've got some 0.19s and we've got some 0.21s. It's just 4-inch hook length straight out of the packet. Honestly, folks, they're amazing. Now I've got two different variations here. I've got obviously the bands and I've got the spikers. My personal preference is to use the spikers with them, or the bayonets, not the spikers either, the bayonets, simply because, again, it's just adding that little bit more weight and it's keeping your bait exactly where you want it. The bands for me, obviously I'll be using them more so for sort of like my pole fishing, but for wafters as well, obviously not as much weight in the hook or anything like that. So we're going to go with a 14s MCM 0.19 on one of the bayonets, not a spiker, on a bayonet. So we'll get that straight out. Look at this, easy. And then obviously all we're doing with this, opening the little attachment up and getting that straight in there. Everyone's got their own personal preference with, you know, knots and this, that and the other, folks. I don't even know what mine's called. I've sort of gone through the hole, gone back through it again, twisted it around 6 times and then put the line through both holes and pulled it tight. But there's not wrong with just doing the old, not a granny knot, but sort of like, you know, 2 or 3 times over and pulling that down. What I have found with that though, it can open up a little bit sometimes down here and it can be a pain getting it through that. So everyone's got their own personal preference. So there you have it, folks. That's what we've got. You know, a nice little 4-inch hook length on. We've got a 14s MCM hook with a bayonet. So next thing we need to do is, remember me saying at the start, I love to use yellow ones, is to choose either 8mm or 6mm. Now again, personal preference, I'd always start off smaller and then work my way up, because obviously match conditions, I want to make sure I'm catching quick, and for me getting a quick response is better than, you know, sort of putting your eggs in one basket and starting off on a bigger bait. So I'm always going to go for a 6mm. So we'll get one of these bad boys out. 6mm bandems. Go on, the 6mm bandems. Now I have treated these, so these should go on perfect. I mean, you can see obviously putting that liquid on, it does give it that degree of, you know, sort of softness. And obviously, as I said, over the weeks and months that you're putting that liquid on, it just gets softer and softer. They're perfect. So obviously with the bayonet, you're going straight through the middle, and then I'll just use my fingernail just to carry on putting that spike through and just pushing that all the way through, like so. Perfect. Next thing we need to do is to get our mould. Now what I want to, again, there's loads of different ways of loading it. What I like to do is put a little layer in first. So I've just got a little layer on there. Then I'll put my hook bait right to the top. Yeah, so that's squashed down, hook bait right to the top, and then I'm going to put another layer on. Loads of different ways of doing it. You know, I suppose that all depends on, now bearing in mind I want to set a trap, I want to make sure that my bait is staying put. If I was getting bites, you know, sort of within 3 minutes of really having it, I'd put me hook bait in first, bait over the top, so that my hook bait is straight on the top. That just seems to work better. But for me, doing sort of like, not a double skim, but putting your little layer on first, your hook bait, and then another layer on top, it's always worked for me. So give that a light squeeze down, and that's what we're left with. You know, perfect every single time. But you can see what I mean about these 1mm. And obviously the 2mm, but the 1mm just fill all the gaps, so it's completely enclosed. As I say, I'm not too worried about ground bait yet. That's for later on in the session. To start with, it's always the pellets, you know, a little bit more bait in there, and just try and get them fish sort of competing. If I feel as though I need to draw fishing, that's when I will get the ground bait on the go. So let's go for it then. So a good 4 or 5 foot drop, but instantly. Now this is the thing, obviously, if we're chucking right tight to start with, you have to be careful, because there's more weight obviously with a method loaded than there was in like a 20 gram bomb that you're casting in. So you've got to bear that in mind with, obviously, you know, the stretch in the line. But with where we're casting, we shouldn't have a trouble with that. So I'm going to point the method where I want it to go. That's coming back nice and slow over my head. So you can see what I mean about that nice light plop. Now, it's one of them, it's up to you whether you want to, you know, sink the line or just leave it floating. Personally, I like to sink it. And obviously, good quality sinking line, like the feeder mono is, it does not take long at all. Now, where's my watch? So that's got chucked in at 9:33. So at 9:36, I need to possibly be thinking about bringing it back. I do like to put a little bit of bait in. So the first sort of like, I'm going to say 3 casts, I'll put a little bait in. So there'll be like a cast every 3 minutes. After that, I'll leave it up to 5 minutes. But usually, most of your bites are coming within sort of, I want to say 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes usually most of your bites. Again, you know, play around with the tension on the tip. Obviously, if there's undertow on the venue, there's not much you can do about that, you know, having a bow in your line. I do like to have it under a slight bit of tension, but then when I'm F1 fishing, it's all carp in here, when I'm F1 fishing, I'll have it sort of like slack lining. That's personal preference, obviously, on the day. So what I've done there, I've got me mould ready for the next cast. I'll put a little tiny babby layer in first. So obviously I can put my hook bait in, another layer on top, and cover that with a towel. So we're on 9:34, so it's been in a minute. Take a little bit off that, not as much tension. It usually I want to say it takes like 2 or 3 casts to get them going. Let's get a little brew. I mean, obviously if we're lucky we'll get one first chuck, but I'd imagine 2 or 3 casts. Just open them 8mm as well. But there's other things you can do. Obviously we've got the haze, you know. Try it, there's no right and wrong with it. You know, put a little bit of that over your method, you know, just to sort of encourage the fish. But how we're starting is I would be starting off in a match. Pellets on first. If I feel I need to draw fishing, then that's when I'll go to the ground make, so it's giving that a little bit more attraction with the cloud and what have you. Or, you know, as I say, if it goes brighter, I mean, obviously it's not too bad today, with it being overcast. We should catch where we're casting. But obviously the brighter the day, that's when you do need to get right tight up into that cover. But to start with, so we had a little line of them, but it's one of them on these kind of lakes this time of year. Obviously we've not had any water for a while. You will get lines from literally where your line goes in the water there all the way out. So it's one of them. We've got, what have we got left? We've got 30 seconds left, folks, on that one. You've got to be strict on yourself. Honestly, you've got to be strict on yourself, because what we're trying to do, obviously there's no bait gun in there, so what we're trying to do is build up the swim, basically. Very rare you catch one first chuck. Sometimes you do if you're lucky, but very rare. It's normally, I'm going to say not even second cast, it's usually third cast. But by then, as I said, there's 3 lots of feed going in over sort of like 9 minutes. Got 10 seconds left. It's got to be strict on yourself. It's almost like, you know, pole fishing. If you've got different swims on the go, you're constantly putting, well, I'd constantly be putting bait in, folks, wouldn't I? You know what I mean? But obviously we know there's fish around, we know there's fish swimming. So we're on 36 now, so that's coming back. Oh, we did foul up one, so they're coming in there literally. As I lifted that out, we foul up one. Well, I think it was foul up. Yeah, it wouldn't have taken it. So we'll put another one of them. Another one of them ones. Got to be yellow. It's mad in how you just get used to using. Yeah, so one of them spikers straight on. I keep saying spiker, I want that on with the bayonet. It's mad how you get used to using one particular colour. It's weird, I can't use any other colour than yellow or orange. Give that a nice press down. Oh, perfect every time. So again, we're going to go for that nice 4 or 5 foot drop. Light swing out, light cast, bring that rod back, lower that, perfect, and sink the line. If they're having it like proper quick, you know, just literally just put it on. I mean, I could get away with it today, folks, to be fair. Just put my rod straight on the rest, because there's not really much wind, you know what I mean? And if the fish, certainly when they're having it quick, if they start getting bites really quick, didn't see what time that went in, 9:37 that went in. So I know at 9:40, I need to be coming back. Carp down here. Yes, what were we on about? Yeah, line. So if it's windy, that's when I'll make sure I definitely sink the line. But if it's not windy, obviously like today, in fact next time I'm just going to put it straight on the rest. But usually I do that more so F1 fishing, you know, fish that are like really, really quick on the bait. Don't tend to do it much with carp, but you know, there's no right and wrong with it again. Let's get this loaded up. Talking to you lovely, like, aren't I? Need to get that loaded up for next time. So it's just little things like this that'll just, you know, speed the process up in a match for you, making sure that's loaded. And obviously we're casting to, you know, to islands here, because it's a natural fish holding area, just like you'd, you know, on a snake lake you'd be going across on a mud line. It's similar. Any island I've got, I'll always exploit that first in a match on a method. But you know, that's not to say that you catch on a method just here. I mean, there's a carp down here. What can happen, and what does happen in a lot of these venues, certainly this time of year, when you get a lot of build up of fish and bait in your peg, there can be an absolute nightmare at times to hook, you know, with liners and foul hookers, you know, on the short pole line. So basically, just fill it in even more, plop a method in, and everyone's in the mouth. It's amazing how that works, and it does work really well in here, to be fair. So that might be another tactic we go through later on. But obviously, what I'm showing you, it's what I'd be doing in a match, and it's simple, isn't it, folks? There's nothing complicated with what we're doing. Most aspects of fishing, there's nothing complicated with it. I'm getting a few signs on that, but there's a few fish starting to show as well, to be fair, you know, up in the water. So obviously they could just be swimming into the line. What we've got left? Got left a minute on that. So as I said, these first 3 casts, but I reckon next cast will catch fish. It's usually third cast. Come on, don't disappoint me. Obviously we've had that one that was probably foul up when we've lifted up. But as I say, usually third cast. We're on my coaching peg, folks, you know what I mean? On my coaching peg. It's usually the way. Start off on this, then we come back on short pole, then we do pole shallow, and then we end up down there. Oh, proper. 20 seconds. But you see how I'm constantly all the time looking at that. You've got to be strict on yourself. It's mad, like, just watching a tip like that, how quick time can go. Just gets out of hand sometimes. You know, you think, like, if you haven't got a watch and you're thinking in your head, right, that's been 3 minutes, I guarantee it's been nearer sort of 5 or 6. So we're on 9:40 now, so that's coming back. Right, this time, folks. This time, so you can see how that bait's coming off lovely every time. So, bait in there, bait on top. I suppose what we're going to give it, I'm going to say 20 minutes at like one particular spot, if you like, you know, if I'm not catching. So the next thing I'd do would obviously, you know, chase him up, and then I'd think about putting the ground bait in. Oh, that's a good one. In fact, now I'm going to put that straight on, straight in. This is going round this, JK. So 9:40, and I've been out at 40. It's just gone to 41 now, so been out at 44. Got a layer on. Yeah, so 20 minutes on, you know, sort of like one spot, if you like. And if I've not had anything there, that's when, you know, obviously if you can see signs of fish closer to the bank, that'd usually be my next port of call. Because if I'm not getting liners, then obviously there's none this side, usually a little bit further out. But if I was getting loads of liners and I could see them bow waving off, then obviously it means that they're shorter. You usually get that if you've got like a, you know, a pellet waggler swim or a bomb and pellet swim on the go. You know, obviously loads of liners, then you're just dropping shorter. But the liners that we've had have definitely been sort of from these cruising fish down the middle. So my next port of call would definitely be going that little bit closer to the island. Because obviously with how warm it's been, obviously it's cloudy today, but with how warm it's been, there might just be, so there's a fish over my bait there now. That's another thing as well, that I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's another thing to look for. Obviously it's shallow water where we're casting, is to look for signs of fish. So all the time I'm looking at my tip, and I know there's 2 fish over it, there's 2 tails over it now. So that could be, you know, if we're not catching, then that could potentially be the need to change something on your hook bait, change something around your feeder. See, there's a fish on that now. You know, just change it up a little bit. There's fish there, so obviously them slow bites, ignore them. Trust me, when the fish is at it, there's no mistaking a bite. Absolutely no mistaking it whatsoever. You can see there's 2, there's fish right over it, 3. There's blooming loads of fish over it now, folks, so it can only be a matter of time before that flies round. But again, obviously, you know, I'm talking about the sinker because I don't want it to move in that pile. You know, by all means, it's not the be all and end all, you know, don't just stick to that, what I'm saying, you know, change it around. If you're not getting bites on something, then obviously, but you can see there's fish there, change it. But 9 times out of 10 this time of year, with the bandem sinkers, I want them to stay in that little pile. but by all means, you know, the banded wafters as well. But for me today, where I want it in that little pile, a sinker, certainly with the bayonet head and that extra little bit of weight, that's what I want. Now what I have had, I'm 44 now, what I have had is a savage liner like that, just them folks, and I've had 3 bow waves off my feeder. Now that's a big no-no. That means you've been mugged off. Now either the fish is come in, sucked your bait in, spat it out, fed the hook and shot off, and it scared everything else. So in that situation, see, there's another couple, look at them, 2 or 3 bow waves there. In that situation, it's almost like, you know, when you set your trap on a mud line or down the margin and you get that big swirl and the bow wave off, there's no difference whatsoever with this, folks. Obviously, if you can see him, if you can't see him, obviously, you know, it's deeper water, then you just carry on. But where you can physically see him, don't stay on it. You've got to come back, set it again. And I thought that'd have gone that time. You can see it's not been in as long because obviously we've got a little bit of bait on there still. I thought that'd have gone that time, and it nearly did. We had that fish come into it, investigate it, and he didn't blooming take it. But how it is at the minute, happy with how it is. What's now 9? So we're on 9:44 now. So this is going to go in at 5:45. In fact, I'm going to give it 5 minutes now. So the next time I bring this out will be. It's a little bit left, that one, but I'm going to leave it. So the beauty of obviously a method, the fish have got to come to your bait to eat it. It's only slightly left, probably about 10 inches, but I'll leave that. I'm not too worried about that. So yeah, this is getting left 5 minutes now. If I don't get one this time, I might change it up next time. I'm gonna put a smaller. Will I put a small bait on? No, I'm gonna change it up and put a different coloured bait on. Let's get one of these orange ones out. Ooh, and the chocolate orange. That's all it can be sometimes. Just a little bit of a change on your bait. See, there's one gone over it then. A little change on your bait can be all the change needed sometimes. Definitely fish coming into that bait. There's one right over it again now. Just eat it, come on. Can be right frustrating at times, but I think it's when you can see him. You know what I mean? That's a thing. If you couldn't see him, you'd just be, you know, obviously fishing away regardless. But the fact you can see him with the water level being down, proper does your head in. But this is, you know, this style of fishing is patient fishing. You know, it's proper exciting. I love it. It's nice fishing rod and line, to be fair. What did I say I'd do? My next port of call? No, you know what I mean? The next port of call, I'm gonna, before I come back this time, I'm gonna let out about another metre of line so I can get closer. Yeah, I think they're coming out from that banking. I think that's what's happening over there. It's different, obviously, because I know the lake so well, and I know that usually, let's say a third cast, normally it goes round. Sometimes second cast, but usually third cast it's gone round. You know, after a little bit of bait's gone in. So I think what I need to do is get a little bit closer over, a bit tighter. Yep, bleeper's gone off there. So I'm going to change my colour of my hook bait and put orange one on. Or orange, as Des would say, orange. And then get a little bit closer. See, we've had another one there. That's 2 that have come off it then. Not too concerned. The one before that though, we had 3 massive bow waves, so I know my bait would have gone everywhere. But again, the beauty of sinker is staying put around your bait. Whereas a wafter potentially be all over the place. But wafter might be the one. We don't know, do we? We could only try. I reckon change of hook bait colour. Bit closer, change of hook bait colour. Definitely. Go on the fishies. Just fish over it all the time. Oh, that was a little ding. That's usually what you get. So again, that could have been one that's come in, had my bait, spat it out. You usually get that sharp pull and then it's on. Come on the carps. Liner. 2 minutes left. Go on the fishies. Come on, fishies. Definitely coming out of them reeds by the look of it. just where they feel safe. Now the reed, incidentally, it's probably another 2 metres back to like the natural banking. It's so undercut, it's ridiculous. So usually, obviously, when you're casting tight to features, they swim back towards you. On here, they can go that way as well. They're blooming pain sometimes, and there's a snag over here sometimes. Somewhere over here. Been hooked up on that a few times. Yeah, see that one? There's a couple of fish right in there. I'm on 40 now. I'm not going to leave it till 50. No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go tighter and change my colour me up bait. So, let out a good sort of metre of line on that. Clip it up again when we get closer this time. So, change that up bait. The yellow one off and then put the orange one on. I say it's mad what you get confidence in. Orange one's going to go, folks. You know it's going to go. Go on the orange. Go on the orange. Right. So that in there. Bait over the top. I'm happy that they're coming into the pellet, so I'm not too fussed about putting ground bait in yet. Right, so a little bit closer, different bait, hopefully. It's going to make a difference. Yeah, boy, that's what we want. So we'll sink that. There's one on that straight away, so we'll have that. Wow. Hold that up again. So we want it. Oh, there's one over it straight away. Go on. Go on. Come on, the fishies. It's going to go. What time did it go in at? 50. That went in at 50. It's going to go. It's going to go. Oh, oh, oh. The other thing as well to watch for, folks, is obviously drop backs. You know, they don't necessarily always go that way. What's that? There's a blooming fish on that down the middle somewhere because my line's going out at a funny angle. That's it, it's tinked off it now. Come on, come on. Yeah, the other thing to watch for is obviously when the fish can't go that way, because they get headache most of the time, is they'll swim back towards you, so your tip will just go. That's another reason that you might want to have a tighter line sometimes than normal, you know, slack line in it. Just mix it up on the day. It's always different. There's fish over that straight away. Look at them! Come on! Eat my bait! Gonna have it. Gonna have it. Mad, it'll take a little change, a little switch like that sometimes, and they'll just nail it straight away. Usually it's to do with the colour. Usually always to do with the colour. I know the bait's fine, I know the bait works. It's usually the colour. And I say it's what you have confidence in. Come on. Yeah, I'm on the fishies. You want the fishies? You want the fishies? You want? Lots of little taps there, more taps there, and there's more signs of fish there than where we were casting before. Oh, right over it he was. Right over it. You see my tips like constantly moving. Yup. Come on. 2 minutes left on this one. Come on. Come on. I've had 4 or 5 visits that have literally been right over it. The other thing as well is hook length. You know, obviously we've got a 4-inch one on. Now I've had it obviously twice on that short chuck when I was a metre off, where I've had them quick ones like that where a fish has had the bait in and spat it out. Now if I was constantly getting that every time, that's when you go to a shorter up length, you know, like a 2-inch one. So that as they suck it up, they're bringing the method up as well, and they're hooking themselves. Sometimes it can be a little bit too much flexing, even a 4-inch up length. So it might be a case that I need to go to a shorter one. But, you know, we can worry about that later on. See, we've had a massive bow wave out there, so he's knocked me off, so I'm coming back. I thought that'd have gone. Yeah, it can be time of day as well. You know what I mean? We know there's fish coming in. We know they're there. So I'm going to load this a little bit different this time. And I'm going to put all that in and my bait on top. Because they're coming to it that quick. Just want to see if we can get them. Well, they see my hook bait straight away, basically. If that works. Yeah, boy. Let's see if that one works. That's going in at 54. Let's see how quick them fish get over. See, there's one on it straight away. And obviously by putting your hook bait right on the top, obviously it's the first thing that they can see and they can nail it straight away. That might work. It's just these little things that you've got to try. Obviously we've been through my preferred way. You know, what if we had 6-7 casts with that and it's not worked? So by just like a little tweak, loading it a little bit different, you know, can sometimes bring an instant response. I'm just going to blooming put it in here and catch this one. It's doing me head in this one. Could probably let him. That's another one. Proper frustrating this, folks. What's happening is I'm convinced my upland's too long. Now basically what's happening, the fish are coming in, obviously every time I chuck in, so what have we had, probably 7, 8, 9 casts, whatever we've had, every time we're casting in, obviously we've gone closer, the fish are coming straight over that bait, immediately sucking it in, spitting it out. That's what's happening, sucking it in, spitting it out, because your upland's too long. Even though it's only 4 inches, it's too long. Now usually what makes a difference is obviously going shorter, so what I'm going to do is get one of these bad boys and make a shorter up length. Just going to literally just half it. I'm sure that'll make a difference. But you know, it's one of them, this is all trial and tribulations of fishing, if you like. You know, it happens. And obviously I think the fish is so used to getting caught on here, they know to sort of like feed directly over the top, suck in, spit out, suck in, spit out. And as soon as you feel that bit of resistance, that's when you're getting that fast take. So literally all I'm doing, half in that, I'm just going to make a little loop in it. A little loop in it is a bit fiddly, especially with mittens like these, but you do get used to tying them. And I'm just going to go through twice, or double overhand loop. So it is fiddly, but we'll do it. Keep an eye on that tip. But I'm convinced well, I'm not convinced, I know that's what's happening. Straight in, getting on my bait, and mugging me off. So, half that. There we go. Put down tight on that. And come in and change baits over. That nice and tight. So 4-inch up length then, folks. Yeah, and I've just halved it. It's probably might be even a little bit less than 2 inches, but it's what we need. I'll get some scissors out. Definitely what we need. Take them off there. Scissors over there. In fact, I'll put a spiker on it now. I said a spiker then, didn't I? I meant like I meant to band them on the bayonet. Unt bayonet. Right, come on then. Get a orange one on. That's good to go. Get a few pellets in there. Right. Come on the fishes. Another one bow waved out there. It's mad. Every cast that I'm doing, I'm getting a fish coming over it. So what's happening basically, obviously, is that's settling on the bottom. Get a bit of slack line out. This is what's happening down there, folks. A bit of slack line. Yes, obviously your bait's in the pile there. Obviously the pellets start to work, and the fish are coming directly over the top. sucking in, spitting out, sucking, spitting it out. You know what I mean? So obviously there's all that flex. Obviously with it being a sinker, it's just going straight back down, sucking in, spitting it out, not hooking themselves. Whereas obviously when it's a short hook length, as soon as you suck it in, that's it. It's usually game over. It usually makes a difference, this. Hopefully it will do today. But it's usually a little tiny change like that. And that's what it's all about in fishing. It's just making these little tweaks, little changes to make the difference. They are being frustrating today. Normally not a blooming fussy on here, but I haven't fished it for a couple of months, to be fair. And obviously they've had a bit of a clattering, so you can see there with a shorter hook length on. Yeah. Just get a bit of slack line up. Shorter hook length on, that's in your pile. So as soon as you suck it in, usually folks, they're hooking themselves, and that's usually what's happening. So hopefully that's what's going to happen now. A bit of tight line on that. That goes in there. Put that back in and over the top. So as you suck that in now, they can't spit it back out without getting hooked. Right, come on. Come on, the fishies. Lovely. Lovely, lovely. Right, so again, let's see how long it takes. So the carp over it straight away. Come on. Get on. You know you want to. What time's that gone in? Come on. Let's just saw a tail right over that straight away. If them duck wax me, we should be able to see him. So again, what I'm looking for is on fast twitches. If I get the fast twitches now, usually it'll stay there and keep twitching as the fish obviously has got the bait in its mouth and zooms off. The only other thing now would be, you know, choice of hook bait colour. Again, obviously we've gone on an orange, started off on a yellow, but yellow was when, you know, we had the 4-inch one on, and to be fair, we probably had a few more signs on them ones, the yellow one. So we've had a bow wave off there. Oh, these are frustrating these. That was on my 16-metre pole swim. We've had a bow wave. Not bothered about him. So I've just got a bit of a, oh yeah, see what I mean, he's on. Now, obviously that's real time, that, folks. It's absolutely nuts, and this is what I hate about fishing. But to be fair, no, I absolutely adore it. This is, for me, I'd sooner have it like, oh, it's fell off, but it wasn't, it's bloody fell off. That's what I'd sooner have about fishing, obviously, where you've got to work it out. Whereas if you're just chucking it in and catching a fish every go, it's not the same. I'd sooner blooming work it out. And obviously, you've seen that in real time. Obviously, it fell off, but you know what I mean? It was on. Proper bite, it was on. It fell off. I'm not making excuses. It fell off because they have been caught lots and lots of these fish in here. So same again, I'll leave that bait on. Let's see if we can catch another one. That was good though, that. I liked how that went. Instantly, it just gives you confidence. A little bit of wind getting up, so I'm just going to sink that line. That was nowhere near me feed, that one. It was about 1 metre short. It was on that old bait. Let's see if there's any still there. Yeah, so a little bit of wind on, that's why I'm sinking that line. Let's see again. You know what I mean about them little twitches then you saw? It was just one twitch and it stayed there and it carried on going because it knew it was hooked, and then obviously it's gone. Perfect. That's the beauty of fishing. Always thinking. Always got to try and outwit them. Not always the easiest thing. Well, it's never the easiest blooming thing in the world to do. So there's another one right over it there. I think they're just coming for, you know, obviously it's inevitable there's going to be the odd pellet coming off that feeder as it falls through the water. We're waiting for obviously the fish to go down the net, and that's when you get them takes. They can't get away from it. They suck that bait in. Yours is with it. You know what I mean? Let's hand that going. That's perfect. That. Love how that worked out. Go ahead. Go ahead, the fishies. Just blooming shame it fell off in here. Never mind. I'm sure we'll catch another one. Oh, yeah, see what I mean? It's mad, isn't it? 2 in 2 chucks like that, folks. Hopefully this one will stay on. Right, now we can go for the all-important playing. So you see, oh, it's bloody fell off again. What is going on today with these fish? Right, so what you've got to consider, folks, if they're falling off, change your hook length, it could be going blunt. But no, joking apart, it's a brand new hook. The trouble on here, because it's been fished that many times, some of the mouths are a little bit damaged, but it's one of them things, you know. There's nothing you can do about it. Just got to carry on with it. That's the thing about fishing. Just carry on with it. Nothing that you're doing wrong obviously straight out of the packet, and this, that and the other. You know what I mean? That's 2 in 2, and it's proving that they're coming straight to it. Lovely. We'll sink that line again. No, we won't. That wind's coming straight towards us. We're going to leave that. Come on. Mad, isn't it? 2 in 2. Oh, he's on it straight away, him. He's on it, is he on it? He's on it, is he on it? I'm going to wait. No, he's on. That's 3 in 3. That's how quick it can be, folks. It's absolutely crazy, isn't it? Please stay on. Just nuts. But I suppose it proves it, you know, absolutely perfect. That's what's happening. You know, obviously a 4-inch hook length, miles too long. So playing fish wise then, so you keep keeping the rod low. You never ever want to lift this rod high. Drag set, I'll always make sure my drag's sort of like set light, but I always backwind. I'm proper old school me, folks. I do like to backwind. So as soon as I hook the fish, I knock the backwind off, so that when it comes under my feet, I can, you know, if I'm not quick enough, then I can use backwind. And obviously always keep an angle on the fish. Now it was moving right around to the left then, so that's why I've come right around to the right. It's going to me right now, so I'm bringing it back around that way. But never lift that rod high until you see it swirl. And this is the beauty of using shorter rods like this 10-foot rods. I'm going to get the landing net in place. Now they are angry. Usually when you get them short on here, they have another dart, but hopefully we'll have it. Right, so as soon as you see it swirl, that's when you can start to think. I've seen him swirl then, see, there he goes. That's why I have that backwind on, just to give you that extra, you know, bit of comfort, if you like. And my drag is set nice, it'll give you that extra comfort. So as soon as you see it swirl, that's when you can think about lifting it nice and high like that, and he's in. Yes, go on, the fish is. Right, so beautiful mirror there. So at this stage, obviously what you don't want to do is grab the fish from sort of like this joint back here in your landing net, because it's just going to go bye-bye. Landing net section go bye-bye and snap. We don't want that. Make sure you bring it all the way in, and you want to grab the top of the net and bring that fish into your lap first. And then you'll see, and again, the other reason I've got, you know, my backwind off is that I can have a slight degree of tension in that rod. I'm going to put my anti-reverse back on and then tuck that rod under your legs. Absolutely perfect. If there's too much tension there, play it off with a drag. That's all we need to do. So next thing to do, obviously, make sure that line's nice and tight. Come round, unhook the fish, and then we put them straight back in the water. But make sure you've always got tension on this. So he goes straight back in. Go on then, the fish is. You don't want to leave me. You go straight back in. Landing net goes over there. And you see the tension I've got in this rod now. So what I can do, bring that back into me legs. Still got that tension, no tangles whatsoever. Again, an area where anglers struggle is because the tip rods are so fine, you'll just get tangle after tangle if you just brought that rod back and put it down here behind you. Always make sure there's some degree of tension in the rod, and then you won't get tangles. Now, me personally, I'm going to change that hook bait. Obviously, it's still on, but I do like to use a fresh hook bait every time. Make sure there's no slime in it or anything like that, and then just straight back in business again. Easy, innit? But it just shows you the importance of always trying to outwit them fish. We knew something wasn't right. You know, the fish were coming straight into that bait, could see the bow waves off, see they were mugging us off, so we knew something wasn't right. You know, obviously, well, not fortunately, but yeah, I suppose fortunately, I've had that happen to me lots and lots over the years, so you know how to remedy it. You know, it can go the other way sometimes. You might need longer hook lengths, but usually 4 inches is about right, and work from there. But obviously, it shows you then by putting a short hook length on. We've had 3 fish in 3 casts. All right, 2 have fell off, but you know, it's one of them. But obviously, we've had that one, and I'm sure, well, you saw how quick that one was. That was within seconds. It's just a case of building the swim up now. Don't need to change anything else. You know, you'd have a run on this, and it might be a case of, you know, going to ground bait and things like that, or changing the hook bait colour. But I'm well happy with how that's gone, to be fair with you folks. Nothing complicated with what we're doing. Just make sure that the timing's on your feeder, yeah? So your first 3-4 casts within 3 minutes, and then religiously, regardless, it's every 5 minutes. And then you need to play about with where you're casting. Obviously, remember, start off short, work your way up. Obviously, the fish are in the cover today. It's plain to see that. They're feeling a lot more confident there. And then it's just all about sticking with it. You know, obviously, if you go a few casts without a fish or without signs or anything, it might be a case of just changing your bait up a bit, put a bit of ground bait with it, try and draw some fish in, changing your hook bait colour or changing the size of your hook bait. Loads of different variations on it, folks, but hopefully, well, we know we've fixed it, and hopefully that's give you a bit of an insight into into the crash course of method feeder fishing. So get out, folks, and give it a try.